He's just busy eating grass.
Mm-hmm. She loves grass. This is clean grass. It's all been washed.
She's a cow. Hey friends, you're watching BrainStormAcres. I'm Henry.
And I'm Irene.
Well, we hadn't planned to do this show today.
No.
In fact, I'd never hoped to do this show at all.
Yeah, but we didn't also plan on having 3/4 inch size hail yesterday.
3/4 inch of rain in 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Right?
A little high winds.
Very high winds and a lot of damage.
Well, let's go show people what we have.
Right. So if you've ever wondered what a major hailstorm looks like, and this is not the worst hail I've ever seen. Worst hail I've ever seen was driving across New Mexico when we got golf ball size hail. But that wasn't in my garden. All I was concerned about there was whether it was going to break the windshield or not.
Well, let's go ahead and go over and start in the new bed by the kitchen.
Well, here we are at the first bed that we looked at yesterday, and it looks a lot different. The black-eyed Susans look like they've been stuck through a meat grinder. The leaves have just been pummeled, ripped apart by the hail. These will be okay. I'm not even going to try and clean up, to be honest. Doesn't make any sense. As the dead pieces brown off, I'll pick them out of here. But there's pieces that are attached and pieces that aren't attached, and it would take a long time just to clean that up. They'll come back. We don't know if they were going to bloom this year anyway, but wow, this certainly wasn't an improvement for them. The celosia have done pretty darn well, and this plant will definitely stay on my list of things to plant here. One of the things I figured out a long time ago is that we sometimes have extremely high windstorms. Now, hailstorms used to happen about every 4 or 5 years, but the last several years they have happened every year. And usually we get 1/4 inch hail, but yesterday we got 3/4 of an inch hail, which is a whole different thing. 3/4 inch hail, if it lasts for a long time, will still do a lot of damage, but 3/4 inch hail it just beats everything to death. I tried to grow some more delicate flowers years ago. I tried to grow, what the heck are they called, those ruffly things? Petunias. Petunias. I love petunias. I think they're awesome. And I had this lovely little crop of petunias, and we had a windstorm, and it shredded every single petal to the point where, you know, it looked lovely like this leaf does. You know, and after that I said, I just can't grow these guys because it's a waste of my time and money to buy petunias and have them instantly totally smashed. Now, because we can count on the windstorms, every year. The celosia are going to be okay. They lost some side branches. Most of the blooms are actually intact. I expect to find a few that are broken off, but they'll be okay. They look a little like stunned at this morning, but they'll be fine. The sunflowers are a mixed bag. The pro-cuts down here were badly damaged, but I don't know what'll be coming out of them. They had a couple of the blooms just completely, the little side branches completely broken off like this. So obviously I'm going to throw these in water just to see if they'll open up and I can get something out of them. But some of the buds are badly damaged enough that I don't know that they're going to open. But in general, these guys came out okay. The entire top of this is broken out. I'll cut that off and I'm going to stick it into water just to see if it'll bloom. Sometimes the flowers will bloom when you stick them in water. Miraculously, this guy did not lose his head. He tilted over a bit, And I'm not even going to try and put him back up because that just doesn't make sense. You can see the zinnias are kind of a mixed bag. Some of them completely broke off. Some of them are sort of semi-torn off. Some of them seem okay. I'm going to cut off any of the ones that are still sort of attached. If the blooms are mostly intact, I'll put those in a vase. The zinnias should rebloom because, assuming that the plant itself hasn't been injured too badly, there's a lot of buds on these still. So they're going to come back. The little marigolds over here are kind of interesting because there's a couple of sections in the center that it literally sheared off all the the branches. So you have what you have in here, and I'm not going to clean it up today because it would, like I said, it would take hours. You have individual branches that were sheared off down the stem. So, gosh, it smells good. I may scoop up some of these and try throwing them into vases too, because they will do well in a vase. So, you know, it's kind of weird because you look in there and it looks fine, but then you find out that they're broken off 2 inches down. The Gomphrena did well. They're missing a few of their tops, but there's still plenty of other stuff in there that didn't break off. They're a very tough plant, which is one of the reasons we grow them. The bachelor buttons are pretty much laying down, but other than laying down, there's a bunch of broken blooms on them, but I think they'll come back okay. Same with these zinnias on this side. They've got a lot of broken tops like this. I'll scoop those into vases. We're going to have a lot of flowers in the house briefly. I'll be able to salvage a lot of that. Some of these were older flowers anyway, so some of them are not worth salvaging. These guys did fine, although their leaves look like something chewed on them, but they didn't. That wasn't chewed on. We actually watched this happening from inside. There's nothing you can do when this is going on, and you don't want to go outside. The marigold's pretty beat up. This is kind of a mixed messiness. It's not as bad as it could be. The vegetables will look a lot worse, let's put it that way. That's one of the flowers off the wild sunflowers here. Just completely ripped them off. And these are wild. Now you can see the same thing happened over here. There's bits of Gomphrena here where the flowers were just broken off by the sheer impact of the oh, this is, yeah, ageratum. Anything that's got a long enough stem, or like this, it's broken, but it's not completely separate. I'll cut those off. They'll come back. The hollyhocks are looking a little worse for the wear. And how dare you be a cucumber beetle here this morning, I tell you what. You're not welcome. I was worried about the hummingbirds yesterday. I was wondering, you know, how many hummingbirds do we lose when we get a hailstone with 3/4 inch hail? Lots of these broken out of the tops here, but most of them will rebloom. If we don't, now the problem we have is we're expected to have thunderstorms of equal or greater volume and ferocity for the next 4 days?
4 days.
So we don't expect to be able to get to town for 4 days. It's possible the main road may completely wash out. So we'll see. These celosia were pretty well protected by the bachelor buttons that had always already fallen over on them the last storm. So they did pretty well. There's a few broken zinnias in here that I'll have to lop off and stick in vases. But I suspect I'll be using a few canning jars too, because I think I'll run out of the regular stuff and have to go to the secondary stuff.
We have a lot of bees in here this morning.
Yeah, I was actually thrilled to see the bees were back. They're I'm sure they're thrilled to see something standing. I don't think they think that much, but I think they're just thrilled to have breakfast. I don't know whether the breakfast gets a little watered down when it gets that much rain, but. And this is not the most rain we've seen by any sense of the imagination. It used to rain 4 inches at a shot every year, reliably, up until about 4 or 5 years ago, and then it stopped. But the problem is when you get these kind of storms that do a lot of damage each time in a row, you can never recover from one set of damage before you get hit with the next set. And I'll bet there's some houses with leaking roofs and stuff. I've got some flooding in the studio this morning, and we probably have some in the workshop too. Calendulars are fine. They look a little chewed on, but they'll be fine. Bachelor buttons are fine. Yeah, the Rudbeckia, just like over there, the black-eyed Susan, they're a little beat. Portulacas haven't opened their flowers yet, but the plants themselves look good. They don't open their flowers until the sun is really up. Now, now these celosia over here got kicked. You can see how broken they are. Honestly, if I hadn't been home, I would have thought this was a deer or some other large animal getting in here. But no, this was just a hailstorm. So, yeah, we have a lot of leaves down. This is going to look really messy in a couple of days. Not that it doesn't look messy right now. Cardinal climber. I can see the ends of the vines are pretty much broken off.
They've also been skinned in a few places.
Yeah, they've been skinned. It literally ripped the leaves and everything off of them. But
hey, Isa, stop chewing the plants. They've already been beat up enough.
Echinacea purpurea is actually doing well. That's a very, very tough plant. So although there's a little damage on some of the leaves, that's not shocking that would actually do okay. The lavender is fine. They're a very tough plant. You'll lose bits and pieces. You'll lose flowers, but they're fine. The zinnias here suffered the same problem as the zinnias on the other side did. They're a bit broken off in some spots, but they'll come back. They've got bottom blooms still on there. The self-seeded hollyhocks over here, there's a couple over here that will probably come back, but they may not bloom this year because they're really, I mean, this is what they look like now. So
all those leaves are all broken off.
Yeah, some of these are just plain broken off. The poppies here are really not happy. They look like they got run over by a car. You see how beat down they are here. They are a more tender leaf. So yeah, I'm not going to play with them. I'm going to let them just sit and see what happens with them because there's really nothing I can do. The Nigella is okay. It'll the love and the mist. It'll come back. Boy, that's a fat bumblebee. He's happy. That's a brand new flower, so he's totally happy. He's got a big fat glob of pollen to work with this morning. The water came down so hard here it actually took all the water off the roots. I'm going to push that back down. The baby marigolds have seen much better days. The ones that were kind of tucked under the eave here are doing okay. Some of these are doing okay and some of them are broken in half. When this whole thing started yesterday, it started extremely suddenly, and someone who's small and fuzzy and has white paws was outside. And I was sitting at my computer working because it had been thunder and lightning for hours, but no rain. And all of a sudden, it just came down full force, and I said, oh crap, the cat's outside. And I ran for the front door because I knew she was on this side of the yard, and I had to hang on to the door so it wouldn't blow all the way open because the wind and the rain was hitting this side of the house. And I screamed her name, and she flew in. She never goes under here. She always kind of hops around and bloops around. She squirted in like a zoom. I wish I'd had a video, but yeah, she went and hid under my desk for about an hour. Again, we have a lot of zinnias that are broken off. The tops are out. Sometimes the blossoms will open even if as long as they're far enough along. You can see that there's a bunch of these where it's sheared off the tops of the stuff. And the wood violets look terrible today, but they will come back.
So what do we have going on in the bucket garden?
Well, the majority of these plants, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, are sweet potatoes. They look like they've been stuck through a meat grinder, but they'll be okay. Now, this one is under the eaves, so it kind of got washed out part of the way here. And you can see literally, it's always interesting to see, well, it's the same thing with frost. You see these things where you'll get patches of damage and patches of non-damage. So some of these leaves really don't look that bad. And then the next section, like all the leaves were stripped off of here. Just there's almost nothing on this pot. All the leaves were stripped off of here. You know, there's a few on there. They will probably come back just fine. The plants back here, the 2 pots of kohlrabi are fine. I need to harvest this pot anyway. They're getting too big. Hi, Isa. She says, my garden is a mess. She likes to lay out in, this is her garden. She likes to lay out in her little bucket garden and make believe she's a tiger. The self-seeded hollyhock in here was partially protected by everything around it. I have my doubt about the cabbages. There are 2 cabbage plants back here. We'll see. I'm going to have to watch them. Sometimes when they get damaged like this, they'll just rot instead of continuing to grow. So we'll see what happens with them. The Brussels sprouts have broken branches, some of which are attached and some of which are off. I think they're fine, but we weren't sure we were going to get any production out of them or not. That's just kind of an experiment. But the Brussels sprouts themselves that are down along the stems are fine because they're protected. It was very exciting sitting aside yesterday and watching things be destroyed. And there's nothing you can do. If you run outside, you're just going to get hurt, so it doesn't make any sense. Let's go look over here. I affectionately call this the messy garden because it always looks messy. Lots of breakage in here. Tops of plants broken out. I'll probably scrounge through here and see what I can actually salvage because there's a bunch of, like that's the top of a dianthus plant. I might as well stick that in water because, well, why not? The sunflowers fell over on top of the strawberries, which kind of protected the strawberries a little, which is probably just as well. I had actually left them over there. I think I mentioned that the other day. Yeah, there's actually some strawberries in there. They're itty bitty, but hopefully they'll survive. The strawberries have some leaves ripped off. Now, the rhubarb. This is what a rhubarb leaves. It looks like that it's been through a hailstorm. We were getting ready to harvest these beasts and had put it off because we had too much else going on. Yeah, we'll see if we get a harvest this year or not. I don't want to harvest too late in the year, and now it's only July, and these won't die from frost until October, but still, those they look pretty bad. Bellflowers are knocked down, but they'll probably pop up once they dry out. This guy hasn't bloomed yet, so we'll see what he does. This guy fell over just as he was blooming. Yeah, hailstorms are never good for leaves for plants with large leaves.
Let's go take a look at our squash, Irene.
Yeah, the squash is looking a lot worse for wear. Glad I harvested well yesterday morning. What's amazing is that we've had this happen before. In a previous windstorm, not that one or this one, which is Bennington green, was flipped over the other direction. So that's okay because it just means you need to look in different spots for your fruit. These guys are pretty shredded. Some of the what's bizarre is that they've broken the stem so badly, and it destroyed the plants that were underneath. I had cantaloupe plants growing underneath here. Totally mashed them. So what I'll have to watch for is what's alive and what's dead, basically. These plants look like they're going to be fine. There's a bunch of small fruits on them. I have an entire refrigerator full of squash at this point, so I'm not too concerned about running out of squash. But this sure didn't improve things. What I am concerned about is the cantaloupe. They were shredded. That's the best way to put it. There's a Bennington green. In fact, you could, if it was dry enough, I would get in there and harvest him, but I will not now. The cantaloupe has not been doing as well as I wanted it to anyway this year, so this sure doesn't help. Do you see that totally broken in half stem there? Yeah, that's what happens with the hollow stemmed plants. Yeah, it almost looks like you put an explosive in there. You know what I mean? These are our watermelons over here, and I just harvested one yesterday morning. I checked everybody's little tendril. In case you don't know how to tell whether a watermelon is ripe or not, the most certain way to do it is to wait for the tendril. Here's your watermelon, and right opposite the watermelon will always be a tendril. When that goes solidly brown, the watermelon is ripe. So I just harvested one yesterday, and I could see another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in here. But this sure didn't improve things, because there's a lot of this is just plain dead. This is South Anna butternut squash over here. This is the problem. See, now the fruit is now split open from excessive rain, and it literally has impact scars like glass does.
Well, thanks for joining us on this trip around our garden, both the flower garden and what's left of the vegetable garden.
Yeah, I'm not going to do much cleanup today except for picking up flowers that I can stick into vases, and some tomatoes that are off the vines. I'll just pick them up so they don't get damaged more. We have 4 more days of this, and we have no idea until it's happened how bad it's going to be. I just got a call from somebody saying that something was scheduled for this weekend has been canceled, thank goodness.
So we have some reassessment to do on how we're planting, what we're planting, when we're planting, if we're going to continue planting in the way we're doing. It's both an issue of the weather. In the past 5 or 6 years, the weather has become decidedly different than what had been from the previous 10 years. We now have 4 more days of rain, which means the roads are going to be muddy, which means I can't haul water, the regular water guy can't haul water, the alternative water guy can't haul water, so now we have an issue.
Now we won't have to water the gardens, which is our main use of water. I mean, we've already put the irrigation on rain delay today. Because, you know, people will say, oh, I can live on 5,000 gallons of water for months and months and months. Well, we can't, because we're using, I mean, just the greenhouse uses, without the hydroponics, 120 gallons of water a week. okay? That doesn't sound like a lot if you're on a city water system, but if you're hauling it in 300-gallon batches, that's a lot of water.
And we use between 75 and 100 gallons a day to cool it using the evaporative cooler.
Right, when we have really hot days, we have to run that. So we have to do some reassessment of some of our infrastructure, see if we can figure out ways to cut our water use, see if we can figure out ways to improve our water collection.
So we got lots of stuff to do in the next couple of hours before it really rains. You may notice the wind is really picking up, which means that the rain clouds are on their way.
Yeah, I can see them down here. So they're coming in from the southwest this morning. I mean, southeast. That's unusual. But yeah, this is a time of year when you get a lot of circulation, where it can come in from any direction on the compass. So until next time, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, because obviously we have a lot going on, and we're going to be definitely rethinking some infrastructure and everything else. And we'll talk about that because we've lived out here full-time for 16 years. And it's only now that things have changed enough that we really need to be changing some stuff up. And yesterday, we actually had row covers on 3 of these beds. And the row cover that had been badly damaged by a previous event, I expected to go. I just expected it to go, and it stayed, and the other 2 were completely ripped off and shredded. I watched this one. I was literally looking out the window when this completely came apart, and there was no reason on God's own planet that it should have done that, because the cover was intact, everything was tied down, but the wind was so high, it was just whipping through here. I was watching the PVC poles practically doing right angles.
Do you know what time it is, Irene?
It is. It's time to say bye until next time. So
we'll talk with you later.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.